back. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate some very good intraday trade setups using Bollinger Bands. So primarily, we are looking at the Bollinger Band Squeeze, for an opportunity to enter into the trades. So the method that we have to follow is very simple. As you can see here, I have the chart of Balram Puccini. I have a 5 minute time frame set up here. So in terms of indicators that we need, of course, first thing we need is a Bollinger Band. Generally you go for a standard deviation of 2 with the Bollinger Bands, and then you can also apply a moving average, exponential moving average of 21. Okay, so and then of course RSI as well. So these are the three indicators I would primarily require for this trade setup. So now, how do we enter into the trade, and what are the preconditions for entering into the trade? So one of the preconditions for the trade is that the Bollinger Band should be narrowing down, as you can see here, specifically in this area. Let's say between 1 and 2 p.m. Right? So you can see that the price was in a very narrow range, and if you see the top and the bottom band of the Bollinger Band, the difference between the top and the bottom band is less than or equal to 0.5% of the price of the stock. Like if you see the top band here, it's around 362, while the bottom band is 360, so which is less than 0.5%. So this is in fact a very good setup. So first condition is there has to be a squeeze on the Bollinger Band. Second is there has to be prolonged period of consolidation. So I would expect a minimum of 5 candles to be in this range, for minimum 5 candles, which is basically you're looking at typically a half an hour of consolidation. So now, where do you enter the trade? So now, the condition for entering the trade in this case, it's a long trade, right? So what we look for is a candle which has closed above the top band of Bollinger Band after a prolonged period of consolidation. So basically, I wait for the close of this candle, which is where it has closed above the top band of my Bollinger Band. And then the second condition I look for, of course, is RSA has to be above 50. Right. So these are the two primary conditions. The third condition is, of course, it's not mandatory, but then EMF 21. I mean, my candle should be above EMF 21. Right. So these are the three conditions. I would say, if you have this kind of setup, it's extremely good setup for an entry, because in terms of risk reward ratio we are looking at least 1:3, or 1:2 in this case. So now I wait for the close of this candle, and then I take a entry for a long trade at the open of the next candle. So in this case, as you can see, my entry is around 363.2, while my stop loss would be a tick below the lower band of my Bollinger Band, which is around, let's say, 360.5 in this case, right? So now this is going to be my long entry here, and as you can see that Balrampur Chiri made a high of almost 373 from 363, which is nearly 3% returns, with a stop loss of less than a percent, right? So very good risk reward ratio, and as you can see that generally when after a prolonged period of squeeze, the movements are going to be very extremely huge, right? Like as you can see, this one candle itself, it's a 5 minutes candle from 363 to almost 370, which is almost 2% move in a single candle. So very simple setup. As I said, the preconditions should be that squeeze on the Bollinger Band, prolonged period of consolidation, the candle closing, breaking out of the Bollinger Band range, and then RSI should be bullish as well. So this is a very good long trade that we saw here. Similarly, in terms of short trade, it is exactly the opposite. While in this case, I mean, this is not like a complete 100% setup that I would prefer, because one of the preconditions, which is the Bollinger Band has to be narrow. For me, this is not narrow to the extent that I would like it to be. For example, here if you see the Bollinger Band is almost, let's say 0.75%, right? So generally I would prefer something between zero point 0.5 and 0.75%. And then in terms of consolidation, while I said that at least five candles have to be in the range, that has been met here. But if it's even more prolonged, I think that makes it a very good trade. So now in terms of a short entry, so where should I take an entry? So basically the candle has to close below the lower band of my Bollinger Band. Okay, I wait for the close of this candle and my RSI should be below 50. Okay, so now both the conditions have been met, and I take an entry of for a short trade on the opening of the next candle, which is over here, which is basically entry of at a price of 442.6 with a stop loss of around 447, right? As you can see, post that Balram Purchani made a downward move, and eventually it made a low of 432. So nearly 2.5% returns, which is again very very decent returns. Even if you look at in terms of RR, it's almost 1 is to sorry 1 is to 2.5, so which is very very good. So the squeeze, as I said, actually when you have a kind of squeeze for a prolonged period in a very narrow range, you generally tend to see very good movements of the stock when it breaks out of the range. Okay, so as I said, as I always say, please do paper trades before you can get into the real trade. But this is something which can be very very interesting, and can give a very good decent returns for intraday traders with this kind of setup. So the setup is fairly simple, as I mentioned in the beginning, and most of these indicators, whether it's Bollinger Bands or RSI or the EMA, should be available with all the broker terminals. So applying the indicator shouldn't be a big deal at all. So good luck. I think waiting to hear feedback from you, but I'm sure that you would enjoy applying this method and trading based on this. See you. Bye bye.